Management said the storm made landfall near the port city of Tau Masina yesterday, forcing the preventative displacement of 1,379 people. Officials have closed schools across the Atisanana region and prepared emergency shelters as the storm approached. And finally, 2 Chinese nationals have appeared before a court in Australia to face charges of covertly gathering information on a Buddhist group in the capital. Police allege the 25-year-old man and 31-year-old woman were spying on behalf of police in China. They were arrested in Canberra this morning. The man was charged with covertly collecting information for a foreign government. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Mwepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, Quinton de Kock and Ryan Rickelton light up South Africa's innings against Afghanistan. And Iga Swiatek eased into the 3rd round of the WTA 1000 Qatar Open. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
This is Africa Update, your pulse to the continent. Stories shaping nations and voices driving change. Stay informed, stay connected, right here on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
It is 12:06 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's Audio Bouquet Channel 802, OpenView Channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app and Channel Africa app are available on the Apple and Google Play stores. Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes on +27 83 288 6684 #Africa Update. Now, coming up in this hour, the National Democratic Working Group has condemned proposed changes to extend presidential terms from 5 to 7 years, potentially keeping President Emmerson Mnangagwa in office until the year 2030, calling it a coup in motion. And the new UNICEF data brief reports that nearly 1 in 5 children in Eastern and Southern Africa are engaged in child labor.
Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update, only on Channel Africa. Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
On #Africa Update Us, Zimbabwean social justice movement, the National Democratic Working Group, has labelled the proposed draft legislative changes to extend presidential terms from 5 to 7 years and potentially keep President Emmerson Mnangagwa in office until the year 2030 as a coup in motion. Do you believe the sentiments expressed by the NDWG is valid and of great concern? Share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes on +27 83 288 6684 #Africa Update Us.
África. Conhece o Ntivani?
Claro que sou eu.
Ntivani é o amante da música de corpo e alma.
Eu amo música africana.
Ele aprecia todos os tipos de melodias e passa os seus dias a ouvir a Channel Africa. Adivinha só, a Channel Africa quer ajudar o Ntivani e os amantes da música em todo o lado a descobrir ainda mais música incrível. Por isso, a Channel Africa está a convocar artistas africanos a submeterem as suas músicas. Músicos, lembrem-se de nos dar todas as informações relevantes no Music @channelafrica.co.za. As submissões são a vossa oportunidade de ser ouvidos, mas não garantem inclusão na lista. Todas as submissões serão cuidadosamente analisadas para verificar se cumprem os requisitos da nossa estação. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 12:09 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Now, we go to Parliament, that's in Cape Town, where Paul O'Sullivan is appearing before the Parliament Ad Hoc Committee. And let's just take a listen to what he has to say. He started his testimony yesterday, and today it continues.
Mr. Sullivan.
Sorry, Chairman.
I don't want to interrupt. I don't want to interrupt.
But you are interrupting,
No,
Chairman.
I have said in my question with a lot of reasons.
You asked me.
The question is, what then convinced you to change the decision not to come and come to Parliament? Now you are taking us back on the reasons you sent us. We know the reasons you raised with us. Now you are taking us back now on why and this and that and that. The question is, what then convinced you otherwise to change your decision of not coming and suddenly come? That's what we want to know. We know the reasons you raised. Don't repeat them.
And I was trying to explain what convinced me. So the issues were, first of all, I wasn't in the country. Secondly, I wasn't planning to be back in the country until the end of February. And then the concerns I raised, I wanted to receive a summons. And the reason I wanted to receive a summons was because I had a legal team standing by to go to the High Court and get an order that would allow me to testify virtually. But I didn't receive a summons. Instead, I received a letter, I think it was last week, from the chairman stating that they would assist me with the arrangements for my personal security. So I took a decision, rather than not be able to place these important facts before this committee, that I would come and attend in person because the summons wasn't issued and I wanted to come here and provide this information. And I need to point out that I sent my first draft of my statement in December.
Okay.
So I made it clear that I wanted to come here.
Okay. Mr. O'Sullivan, are you a habitual liar?
Pardon me?
Are you a habitual liar?
Of course not.
Are you a name peddler?
A what?
Name dropper?
Of course not.
Are you an information peddler?
Absolutely not.
Do you hold Mr. George Fivers in high regard?
I've never met him. I think I probably met him 25 years ago.
But in the statement you say he was the best commissioner. So after him there was no proper commissioner appointed.
Chairman, I did not say in my statement that he was the best commissioner. I never said that. If you can point that out to me,
Okay.
I would be very happy.
We'll take you there. Do you know that Mr. Fivers Commissioner Fivers recognizes you as an information peddler, a liar, and a name dropper?
Well, that is the Paul O'Sullivan there responding to some questions at the Parliament Ad Hoc Committee. This is the inquiry that is underway in Parliament in the Western Cape of South Africa. Now, it is 13 after 12 Central African time. Zimbabwean social justice movement, the National Democratic Working Group, has labelled the proposed draft legislative changes to extend presidential terms from 5 to 7 years and potentially keep President Emmerson Mnangagwa in office until the year 2030 as a coup in motion. And the organisation says it has submitted a petition to African Union Commission chairperson Mahmoud Ali Yusuf urging the AU to intervene. Zimbabwe's cabinet has backed a draft legislation that could significantly reshape the country's political landscape. And for more reaction on this development, we are joined on the line by a Zimbabwean legal academic and activist, Munya Gwisai. Munya, good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Greetings, good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Now, from a constitutional law standpoint, how legally sound are the proposed amendments to extend presidential terms and potentially shift presidential elections from a direct vote to parliamentary election?
Yes, this is the most sweeping and audacious change of the constitutional and democratic framework of Zimbabwe since the 1987 constitutional amendments that introduced an executive presidency, which was part of the drive by Robert Mugabe and ZANU-PF to introduce a one-party state, effectively a one-party state dictatorship. So this is what has happened in this matter. The constitutional bill, whose principles were adopted by cabinet yesterday, seek to extend the presidential term from 5 years currently under the constitution to 7 years, which would then mean that President Mnangagwa would remain in office until 2030. So basically, it is what we call a term limit provision. The Constitution calls that a term limit provision. Now, in terms of the Constitution, where you have a term limit provision, whose effect is to extend the period in which the incumbent remains in office, it is required that such a constitutional bill or amendment be approved firstly by 2/3 in parliament, 2/3 majority in parliament, and then secondly, after such a 2/3 majority approval in parliament, it must go within 3 months to a national referendum. But what has happened with the constitutional bill that has been pushed pursuant to a resolution by the ruling party ZANU-PF, it's called resolution number 1, made in 2024. They intend skipping the second stage of going to the people, the referendum, and just use a 2/3 majority, which they know they may have because they have contrived and manipulated the processes which ended up in the recall of a significant number of opposition members. So the problem constitutionally of this extension is that they are seeking to amend a fundamental provision of the Constitution, which is protected under Section 328, without going to the people, without going to the referendum. But the Constitution does not allow that.
And I was actually coming to that with regards to the Constitution and what it allows, or permits without a referendum, particularly where they may affect a presidential tenure and or electoral processes. Now, if these amendments proceed, what legal avenues, domestically or regionally, exist in challenging their constitutionality or legitimacy?
Well, in fact, it's not just one referendum. So sacrosanct is this provision in terms of the democratic provision of Zimbabwe that if you amend a term provision of this nature, it cannot benefit the person who's an incumbent when the amendment is done. So they would have to do a second referendum to actually allow to benefit. So there are two referendums. So that's why they are afraid, because they realize that given the crisis in the country, the poverty, the corruption of the Mnangagwa administration, the austerity measures on ordinary people, lack of jobs, they are not ready to meet the people of Zimbabwe. They know that the people of Zimbabwe do not accept and do not accept an extension of the poverty, the corruption that has characterize this administration. So this is just an attempt at extending a regime which clearly is no longer popular with the masses of the people. And the amendment further goes on, in fact, to then transform and change the system whereby the president is elected by popular vote. But they will now seek to have a system where the president is elected by majority votes in parliament. Again, and a running away, a flight from the people. The Zimbabwean constitution is based on popular sovereignty. Authority of the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary in terms of the constitution is derived from the people. And ultimately, the people's parliament is a referendum. And that is what we are doing. What are the remedies? The remedies in terms of the constitution would be to make an application to the Constitutional Court for an appropriate remedy. But you will note that all this has been planned and contrived. This would be Constitutional Amendment number 3. Constitutional Amendment number 2 was actually one which extended the term of office of the current Chief Justice, as well as other senior members of the Constitutional Court, who should have retired at 70 years. But actually that constitutional amendment ensured that they can go up to 75 years. So obviously this was in preparation of this kind of final mother of amendment bill. And this same amendment bill also ensures that senior judges of all the courts will in fact be appointed by the president. They will not have to go through public scrutiny. So they've been incentivized by this bill as well as amendment number 2. So in the real sense, therefore, domestic remedies, whilst they will be pursued, we are part of what is called the Defend the Constitution platform, which is uniting different political parties, movements, and organizations. We will take that terrain, but ultimately we are very clear that it is only in the people's parliament. It is only with the people of Zimbabwe mobilized in action that these clearly unconstitutional and unacceptable amendments will be sought.
You know, what sort of reaction are you getting from just ordinary people of Zimbabwe?
People are shocked. You see, of course, we have known for the last 2 years that Mnangagwa and ZANU-PF have wanted to do this. Although Mnangagwa, as late as last March in 2025, publicly made a public commitment and an announcement that he was going to finish his term in 2028 when it is due, and that he was not going to accept any attempt at extending it. So clearly, he has not been forthright with the people of Zimbabwe. We know the reason why that he did so. Now, it is clear because at that time, a section of the war veterans led by the deceased Comrade Bombshell, the Agesa, had mobilized people for a massive shutdown on the 31st of March 2025. Just a few days before that, that is when Mnangagwa made a public announcement renouncing. So people are shocked, but people at the same time do understand that if they allow this to pass, then you bury constitutional democracy in Zimbabwe. And we are getting from across, across different social, political, religious divides, the feeling that this will be resisted and people will be ready to defend the Constitution. Because clearly, this constitutional amendment is designed to benefit, in particular, the corrupt cronies of the ZANU-PF administration who have been looting very significant sums of money. So people are angry with that. So we, I think, expect a big fight from the citizens of Zimbabwe to stop this butchery of the Constitution and democracy.
Munyai, thank you so much. Munyai, I beg your pardon. Thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update. We are going to leave it there for today. That's Zimbabwean legal academic and activist Munya Gwisai joining us on the line. It is 23 after 12 Central African Time.
Je, una jambo lolote akilini mwako? Je, una shauku kuhusu masuala muhimu? Na je, una maoni ambayo unataka yasikike? Kweli, hili jukwaa ni la kwako. Piga simu au tuandikie kwenda WhatsApp namba alama ya kujumulisha 2760552594 na tutakupigia simu.
Mtangazaji wa habari zetu za Afrika Kusini mjini Johannesburg.
Hivyo unaweza kuwa mshirika kwenye matangazo yetu. Sio mazungumzo tu, ni fursa yako ya kuchangia maoni yako na kushirikiana na jumuiya ya wasikilizaji wanaotamani mtazamo wako. Tufuate kwenye mitandao ya kijamii. Tembelea tovuti yetu www.channelafrica.co.za na uwe tayari kushiriki na kuchangia maoni yako kwenye Channel Africa. Channel Africa, mtazamo wa Kiafrika.
Let's just do it.
Your life just got easier. Get the Channel Africa app and take us wherever you go. Catch the latest news, enjoy your favorite shows, stream the music you love, and stay connected to the continent. All in one spot, right in your pocket. Simple, quick, and always with you. The Channel Africa app. Download it now on iOS and Android. Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Well, we continue this discussion on Zimbabwe and the constitution with the Zimbabwe Social Justice Movement, say the National Democratic Working Group, labeling the proposed draft legislative changes to extend the presidential terms from 5 to 7 years, potentially keeping President Emmerson Mnangagwa in office until the year 2030 as a coup in motion. And now we are joined on the line by the leader of the MDC, that's Douglas Monzora. Douglas, good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, Tracy. How are you?
Well, Douglas, you're speaking to Lulu. We're live on Channel Africa. You know, I was speaking to a Zimbabwean legal academic and activist, Munywa Gwisai, who basically outlined the challenges that are going to be faced with regards to, these changes, legislative changes, and how what sort of process everything has to go through. Now, what's your reaction to all of this? It has been in the making for the past 2 years. Now it's even coming, to that. It's come to that point where is very critical. What is your stance as MDC?
Well, first of all, the amendments represent a very long way backwards for the people of Zimbabwe. First of all, Zimbabweans are all of a sudden disenfranchised. They are no longer allowed to elect a president. The president is now going to be elected by parliament, whereas we had a system of direct franchise. So at a stroke of a pen, millions of Zimbabweans are now disenfranchised. Number two, we are extending the term of office of the president from 5 years to 7 years. And they want to do it via via parliament. So they just want to go to parliament and pass the bill and have it signed by the same president. They want to approach the parliament whose term is going to be extended for this bill to be signed by the president who stands to benefit. In terms of the constitution of Zimbabwe, whenever you have a proposal to extend term limits, that must go to referendum. ZANU-PF is avoiding referendum. The second objectionable of this bill is regards to defense forces. In the constitution, the current constitution, the defense forces are enjoined to defend the constitution. Now that has been removed, and they are saying that the defense forces must do what the constitution says. There is a reason for that change. It is to make sure that the defense forces are no longer enjoined to act constitutionally and to defend the constitution. So this is a very, very long way backwards. This is despicable. This is unacceptable to the people of Zimbabwe, and they want to avoid the referendum because they do know that at the referendum, the people of Zimbabwe, the majority of Zimbabweans will refuse.
What's the plan of action now? Douglas, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
All right. I was just trying to find out from you what plan of action do you have in place going forward?
Well, we are still waiting for whether the bill is going to be introduced to Parliament. But it is important that all Zimbabweans unite at this point in time to make sure that we thwart this bill. It is going, in terms of the constitution, it has to lie fallow for 90 days. It has to be gazetted and then is laid for 90 days for Zimbabweans to discuss. We have to mobilize the people of Zimbabwe. The outreach programs that Parliament is going to do have to be packed with people who will say no to this dastardly bill.
And just for interest's sake, when it comes to elections and voting, do the people in the diaspora, manage to cast their ballots and be a part of the voting process in Zimbabwe?
Unfortunately, the practice has been that they are not allowed to vote. They are only allowed to vote if they are in Zimbabwe. Yet the constitution is very, very clear that every Zimbabwean has the right to vote, and it does not give the residence requirements. So Zimbabweans in the diaspora are not allowed to vote. So these are some of the reforms that we have been fighting for as the opposition, as the MDC, that the diaspora people must be enfranchised. Now, besides, on top of the diaspora people who have been historically disenfranchised, the entire nation now has now been disenfranchised by this new law that says that the president does not require direct election.
Well, Douglas, I wish we had more time. Unfortunately, we are going to leave it there for today.
Thank you very much.
That's Douglas Mwanzora, the leader of the MDC, joining us on the line. It is 12:30 Central African time, and our news headlines up next.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. Making headlines, the head of the United Nations peacekeeping mission has urged the Security Council to ensure that South Sudanese political actors step back from a dangerous situation amid fears that the country could spiral back into a civil war. As today marks 36 years since South Africa's former President Nelson Mandela was released from prison, the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund says it wants to move this moment beyond commemoration and into present-day relevance. And finally, the state of Sao Paulo in Brazil is allowing animals to be buried in family graves in recognition of the emotional bond between animals and humans. I will have details on these and other stories at 1 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
First up, it's cricket news. It took 2 super overs before South Africa and Afghanistan could be separated in the ICC Men's T20 World Cup Group D match in Ahmedabad. And the Proteas prevailed in the most dramatic fashion. After the match ended in a tie with both teams having scored 187, Proteas batter Tristan Stubbs needed a 6 of the last ball of the first super over to give his team another crack at victory. He produced. In the second super over, Stubbs and David Miller batted first and posted 23 runs with 3 sixes. Left arm spinner Keshaf Maharaj then restricted Afghanistan to 19 for 2 to secure victory. The Proteas remain unbeaten from 2 matches and next take on the only other unbeaten team in the Group D, New Zealand, in Ahmedabad on Saturday. South African rugby legend Brian Habana has reflected on his transition from an on-the-field superstar to an off-the-field success since hanging up his boots several years ago. The 42-year-old, who quit the game in 2018 and played his last international test nearly 10 years ago, has enjoyed a seemingly seamless crossover into the business world with several personal business ventures as well as numerous ambassadorial roles.
But I've been incredibly fortunate that I've had some phenomenal people by my side. I think firstly my wife, Janine, and my family that have really supported me, allowed me to spread my wings in the best way possible. Some business colleagues that allowed me to start a fintech company called Pay Me Now that has allowed me to find my feet, but then ambassadorial work with the likes of HSBC, MasterCard, Defender, and doing things that I love, but being able to unlearn to learn has been pretty spectacular. And if I look back over the last 8 years, where I started off in the wilderness, I'm pretty comfortable in an environment where I'm extremely blessed.
One of his latest roles is being appointed ambassador of the Southern Guards GC team in Live Golf, and the 2007 Rugby World Cup winner explained how this came about.
So when the Southern Guards team approached me about firstly giving me the insight that Live Golf is coming to South Africa, I thought they were absolutely lying. And then a few months later, we had the announcement by Minister Gayton McKenzie saying that Live is coming to South Africa in March 2026. I love positive disruption, and I think what Live has done to the game of golf has positively disrupted. There's obviously a lot of naysayers on all sides of the fence, but I think the most important thing, and listening to Scott O'Neill just around how they're wanting to grow the game, and watching that Greens and Gold documentary in December last year, and understanding at what level professionally, Charles, Louis, Brandon and Dean play at.
For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
África. Conhece o Ntivani?
Claro que sou eu.
Ntivani é o amante da música de corpo e alma.
Eu amo música africana.
Ele aprecia todos os tipos de melodias e passa os seus dias a ouvir a Channel Africa. Adivinha só, a Channel Africa quer ajudar o Ntivani e os amantes da música em todo o lado a descobrir ainda mais música incrível. Por isso, a Channel Africa está a convocar artistas africanos a submeterem as suas músicas. Músicos, lembrem-se de nos dar todas as informações relevantes no music@channelafrica.co.za. As submissões são a vossa oportunidade de ser ouvidos, mas não garantem inclusão na lista. Todas as submissões serão cuidadosamente analisadas para verificar se cumprem os requisitos da nossa estação. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Good afternoon. Kenya's Minister of Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs, Hassan Ali Joho, says the country holds vast, largely untapped mineral potential and is positioning itself to attract a greater share of global mining investment. He says concrete policy and regulatory reforms are already in place to make Kenya a competitive investor-ready mining destination. Joho, who is currently attending the Investing in African Mining Indaba in Cape Town, says Kenya is showing potential of increasing its mineral production capacity.
Greater grades and better and sustainable findings of gold. That is just one area. The entire belt cuts across. It begins from the border of Tanzania, it cuts across all the way to the border of Ethiopia. We are exploring today. Within a very short period of time, we'll make an announcement of our findings. But grades, wonderful grades. Deposits, viable, economically viable and sustainable. Kenya will open up in a manner that people will not believe.
Kenya is considering more Eurobond issuance to pay off maturing debt as part of liability management operations to smooth out its debt maturity curve. Kenya Finance Minister John Mbadi told a news briefing that it looks like a favourable time for East Africa's biggest economy to go back to the Eurobond market. However, he says that the decision will be made later. Mbadi says that the central bank has assured his ministry that enough Chinese currency will be available to pay off loans from China that have been converted from US dollars into yuan. Back in South Africa, a farm in the country's Northern Cape province has been placed under a quarantine following a suspected outbreak of foot and mouth disease. The alarm was raised by the Red Meat Producers Organisation after official notification from provincial veterinary services. State veterinarians and police have secured the site, enforcing strict movement controls to contain any potential spread. Provincial chairperson of the Red Meat Producers Organisation, Brand Dutoy, says that they're still waiting for test results to confirm the outbreak.
We haven't received the positive confirmation yet, but hopefully today it will confirm. If it's positive, it will be severe consequences for the province. Our livelihood exists from the sheep farming. We are vast open spaces which is suited for animal farming. So the most of the local towns' economy turns around the local farmers with their sheep and their cattle.
Zambia has formally requested a new International Monetary Fund IMF program with a team from the multilateral lender expected to visit from the 25th of February to the 4th of March. According to the country's treasury, Felix Nkulukusa, if talks go smoothly, the Southern African nation expects to reach a staff-level agreement with the IMF in May. Zambia's most recent IMF program ended in January, with total disbursements of $1.7 billion supporting the country as it emerges from a protracted debt restructuring process. Dutch brewer Heineken says it will cut up to 6,000 jobs from its global workforce and set lower expectations for profit growth in 2026 than a year earlier, as the brewer and its peers grapple with weak demand. The world's number 2 brewer by market value has promised to deliver higher growth with fewer resources as it looks to assuage dissatisfied investors who say it has fallen behind on efficiency. At the same time, sales across the sector are faltering amid strained consumer finances, geopolitical turbulence and bad weather. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 354. In Botswana, it's at 12 pula 99. Kenya, 127 shilling 90. And Zambia at 18 kwacha 92. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar will cost you 5.20, Russia 77 rubles 19, India 90 rupees 60, China 6 yuan 91, and in South Africa the dollar will cost you 15 rand 93, 73 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Gold is trading at $5,060 while platinum $2,136 per ounce. Brent crude oil is at $69.37 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Thabisola Hoku.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Let's just do it.
Your life just got easier. Get the Channel Africa app and take us wherever you go. Catch the latest news, enjoy your favorite shows, stream the music you love, and stay connected to the continent. All in one spot, right in your pocket. Simple, quick, and always with you. The Channel Africa app. Download it now on iOS and Android. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
It is 12:42 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. The head of United Nations Peacekeeping has urged the Security Council to ensure that South Sudanese political actors step back from a dangerous precipice amid fears that the country could spiral back into a civil war. Jean-Pierre Lacroix was addressing the council days after the Secretary-General Antonio Guterres condemned escalating violence in the country where nearly 10 million people, or more than two-thirds of the population, need life-saving humanitarian assistance but continue to face the brunt of conflict. Lacroix warned of a political deadlock among the main signatories to the revitalized peace agreement of 2018 that continued to drive heightened tensions that was manifesting itself in armed confrontations in many parts of the country. Show Bryce Peace has more.
With a devastating conflict to the north in Sudan showing no signs of abating, South Sudan again finds itself at a crossroads. Opposition leader Riek Machar detained under house arrest amid charges of treason, murder and crimes against humanity, and a peace agreement that hangs in the balance ahead of a key election expected in December. Listen to the Undersecretary General for Peace Operations, Jean-Pierre Lacroix.
We therefore remain concerned by recent unilateral initiatives to amend the agreement, including proposals to defer key outstanding tasks such as the constitution-making process until after the elections. If pursued, such changes would alter the primacy of the agreement and its precedence over national legislation. The Sudan People's Liberation Movement / Army and Opposition, or SPLM-AIO, as a principal signatory to the agreement, has indicated that it was not able to participate in these discussions in light of the ongoing legal proceedings involving First Vice President Riek Machar. The party has continued to contest these initiatives and has reiterated its position that its participation in political dialogue is contingent upon Mr. Machar's release.
The latest Secretary-General's report on South Sudan points to an uptick in aerial bombardments and inflammatory rhetoric, with warnings that the country remained one of the most dangerous places in the world for humanitarian work, with 350 attacks recorded in 2025. Obstacles to delivering aid include attacks and the looting of health, humanitarian and other facilities. With almost 100,000 reported cases of cholera, the country now faces its worst outbreak in history, while almost 400,000 people have been displaced in just the first 5 weeks of 2026.
Political deadlock among the main signatories to the revitalized peace agreement continues to drive heightened tensions, manifesting in armed confrontations in many parts of the country. In recent weeks, we have witnessed a sharp escalation of violence, particularly in Jonglei, with clashes between government and opposition forces. Both sides claim to be acting in self-defense, while at the same time preparing for the possibility of large-scale hostilities. The reports of aerial bombardments, inflammatory rhetoric, mass displacement, and severe restrictions on humanitarian access observed in Jonglei are of great concern.
USG Lacroix noted regional efforts aimed at revitalizing dialogue with the holding of elections this year seen as a key milestone, the first since the country gained its independence in 2011, while welcoming a proposal for a leadership retreat in Pretoria under the auspices of the AU High-Level Ad Hoc Committee for South Sudan.
In light of the above, the international community, including this council, must ensure that the South Sudanese political actors step back from this dangerous precipice, return to dialogue, and seek consensus on the way forward. The renewed momentum we're seeing in the region, the efforts by the African Union, IGAD, and South Sudan's neighbors are laudable and require our support, and require the united support of this Security Council at this critical juncture. A coordinated, strong approach by the international community will help ensure the integrity and supremacy of the revitalized agreement, and will eventually lead to the long overdue and successful implementation of its security arrangements and the holding of free, fair, and inclusive national elections.
Under the current political, security and humanitarian environment, the UN peacekeeping mission is operating under increased strain, exacerbated by the broader financial crisis facing the entire UN that has resulted in cutbacks of some 25% across all peacekeeping operations. As South Sudan again offers a highly volatile landscape in a region already devastated by conflict and human suffering, amplified by an entrenched political deadlock that is rendering the peace framework increasingly untenable, with the African Union goal of silencing the guns across the continent by 2030 increasingly in doubt. I'm Sherwin Bryce-Pease in New York.
It is 12:47 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Our new UNICEF data brief reports that nearly 1 in 5 children in Eastern and Southern Africa are engaged in child labor. The region accounts for almost 1/3 of the global total and has the highest number of children in hazardous work, including mining and construction. UNICEF says children belong in classrooms, not workplaces. And for more, we are joined on the line by Nankali Maksud, Regional Advisor for Child Protection at UNICEF Eastern and Southern Africa. Nankali, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you. Good afternoon to you too.
Now, what are the primary drivers behind the high prevalence of child labor in Eastern and Southern Africa? And how do economic pressures and climate shocks, conflict and global funding cuts contribute to this issue? Because when you think about it, if a child is working, it's more than likely a case of taking home something to eat.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And, indeed, we've launched our report today, and it shows that 1 in 5 children in the region are remaining in child labor. As you rightly pointed out, what's driving this is poverty, it's climate shocks, conflict, it's economic fragility. The combination of all of these in households are making households start to think about where else they can be able to get their income. So you're right, indeed, that just like households, as they lose out on other income, they start to think, what else can we do? The problem with this, of course, is that we're pulling children out of school. We're taking away the opportunity for them to grow up into being productive citizens in the future.
And what role do governments, for instance, the private sector, civil society and communities play in addressing child labor? And, how can they work together to implement a joint roadmap in ending child labor in these parts of the African continent?
Right. So we know what works. The good news is that actually in some parts of the region, we have registered declines in child labor. We know that if we address the issue of a family income, we can be able to reduce or stop families from making these choices. And so what are those things that we can do at household level? Number one is, for example, cash transfers. We can actually look at how to either give really poor families, cash in hand, or look at how to give them opportunities so they can be able to have work, so that they don't take children out of school. The other thing we can do is education systems. We have been pushing children into school, but we're not developing an education system that can prepare children to be able to get into jobs in the future. If families look at an education system that doesn't lead to opportunities for them in the future, then they start to explore their options and say, well, maybe this is not for us. Maybe our children can start working earlier and actually be able to have gainful employment. But what they don't know is that actually has a significant impact in the future of these children. For governments, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that if you look at the kinds of work that these children are generally doing, or most of them are doing, it's hazardous work, which is including mining and construction. What specific strategies can be employed to protect children from these forms of child labor?
So this one is, this one is one that really touches us. A lot of the work that most of the children have been doing to date has been in the agriculture sector. So much of our energy and effort has been focused on the agricultural sector. But what the report is showing us is that now we're shifting into hazardous labor, construction, mining, manufacturing. These are the places where we're seeing children being exposed to dangerous tools, to heavy loads, chemicals, you name it. The good news is about what we have on this part of Africa is that we've got a lot of labor laws in place, but we're not applying them. And so we need to be able to apply our labor laws more strictly. We need to have inspection systems that are taking place. And once again, we need just to ensure that households have the income so that children don't find themselves in those type of environments.
And just in wrapping up, what are the key challenges in implementing continental commitments under Agenda 2063, Agenda 2040, and the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child to eliminate child labour? And how can these challenges be overcome?
We need to be able to prioritize our children. We keep talking about the youth and the dividend that they bring on the continent. As you've rightly pointed out, in terms of policy, we are policy rich, but we're not taking this issue of young people and of children as seriously as we can. Governments need to be able to put the resources down together to be able to ensure that households don't feel these type of pressures. A lot of policies are in place, but they're not being implemented. And so we have policies at continental level, we've got policies and planned at national level, but we need to shift towards implementation. And that means prioritizing budgets, particularly in areas where we know that children are likely to be exposed to child labor.
Nankali, we are going to leave it there for today. Thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you.
That was Nankali Maksud, Regional Advisor for Child Protection at UNICEF, Eastern and Southern Africa, joining us on the line.
Je, una jambo lolote akilini mwako? Je, una shauku kuhusu masuala muhimu? Na je, una maoni ambayo unataka yasikike? Kweli, hili jukwaa ni la kwako. Piga simu au tuandikie kwenda WhatsApp namba alama ya kujumulisha 2760552594 na tutakupigia simu.
Mtangazaji wa habari zetu za Afrika Kusini mjini Johannesburg.
Hivyo unaweza kuwa mshirika kwenye matangazo yetu. Sio mazungumzo tu, ni fursa yako ya kuchangia maoni yako na kushirikiana na jumuiya ya wasikilizaji wanaotamani mtazamo wako. Tufuate kwenye mitandao ya kijamii. Tembelea tovuti yetu www.channelafrica.co.za na uwe tayari kushiriki na kuchangia maoni yako kwenye Channel Africa. Channel Africa, mtazamo wa Kiafrika.
We are on OpenView's audio bouquet. Channel 628.
Well, Dabukhle Kuleni of the Upside team is here. How are you today?
Fantastic, Lulu. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Happy Hump Day. It is Hump Day.
It is Hump Day.
Yeah,
it is Hump Day. Happy Orange Day to you too. Here's what's coming up on the Upside this afternoon. It's a Travel Wednesday. We'll be exploring a few activities that you can get up to with your partner this upcoming Valentine's Day. Something that's a bit different, unique. Maybe you haven't done it before. Okay. We'll be exploring some date ideas for Valentine's Day. And then we'll be getting into conversation about the Future Hospitality Summit Africa, which will be returning to Nairobi on the 31st of March to the 1st of April 2026 in Nairobi. And then we explore a restaurant that has moved all the way with origins in India, making its way to South Africa. So again, exploring some date ideas and some restaurants that you can try out during this Valentine's weekend.
Well, all that and more coming up at the top of the hour on The Upside with Debohole Kuleni and Matseko Musito. We continue on Africa Update. Stay with us.
Let's just do it.
Your life just got easier. Get the Channel Africa app and take us wherever you go. Catch the latest news, enjoy your favorite shows, stream the music you love, and stay connected to the continent. All in one spot, right in your pocket. Simple, quick, and always with you. The Channel Africa app. Download it now on iOS and Android.
The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, has warned that relentless violence, famine and disease are picking off Sudan's children, while attacks on healthcare and a lack of aid access hamper efforts to help them. Sudan is facing the world's worst humanitarian crisis. 33 million people are in need of aid amid war, famine and mass displacement. Tutungubeni has more.
The humanitarian catastrophe in Sudan began from a civil war that erupted on April 15th in 2023 between the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces, a paramilitary group with roots in the Janjaweed militias responsible for past atrocities in Darfur. Over 10 million children are out of school and nearly 85,000 children in North Darfur suffer from severe acute malnutrition. Ricardo Perez, spokesperson for the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, says that in parts of North Darfur, more than half of all children are acutely malnourished.
In parts of North Darfur, as we speak,
More than half of all children are acutely malnourished. Not projected, not modeled, confirmed. New IPC data released last Friday from 3 localities in North Darfur, Umbaru, Kernoi, and Atina, shows catastrophic malnutrition rates. Famine thresholds for malnutrition have been surpassed in Umbaru and Kernoi, locations that weren't previously considered at risk. Extreme hunger and malnutrition come for children first, the youngest, the smallest, the most vulnerable. And in Sudan, it's spreading. These are children between 6 months and 5 years old, and they are running out of time.
He added that also nearly half of all children in Athena had been sick in the previous 2 weeks.
These children are not just hungry. Nearly half of all children in Athena had been sick in the previous 2 weeks. Fever, diarrhea, respiratory infections, low vaccination coverage, unsafe water, and a collapsing health system are turning treatable illnesses into death sentences for already malnourished children. The world must stop looking away from Sudan's children. More than half the children in Umbaru are wasting away while we watch.
Nearly 3 years since the war erupted between the once allied Sudanese Armed Forces, SAF, and the Rapid Support Forces, 13.6 million people have fled their homes, including 9.1 million displaced within the country. Dr. Shible Sabani, the World Health Organization's representative in Sudan, told reporters that while the displaced require urgent care, the health system has been ravaged by attacks.
The newly displaced populations, including returnees, require urgent health interventions which the weakened health system is unable to cope with. The health system has been ravaged by attacks, loss and damage of equipment and supplies, a shortage of health workforce, and operational funds.
Dr. Sabani says since the start of the war in April 2023, the WHO has verified 205 attacks on healthcare workers that have led to 1,924 deaths and over 500 injuries.
And that report by Tuto Ngobeni. And that's how we wrap Africa Update today. Thank you for joining us. Continue with us on all our social media platforms. And let's do this again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
SABC News. The African Perspective.